Happy Earth Day, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, or evening to you, depending where you are in the world. Please take a moment to share with us your name, your professional title, organization, and where you're joining us from in chat. It's always nice to see where everyone is connecting to us from. My name is Anthony Chow. I'm the director of the School of Information at San Jose State University. And greetings from Bend, Oregon, and the Oregon Library Association. As a director, I have the privilege of traveling the nation and the world. And just in the past 12 months, I've seen so much beauty, so much cultural diversity and pride. And I'm so happy to have the privilege of seeing planet Earth in all of its natural splendor. It is so worth fighting for. Today marks a milestone for me in my desire to prioritize sustainability and prioritizing the environment. We're so fortunate that Loida has joined the iSchool team, and we're going to empower her with our robust resources in our global network to help ensure that libraries and librarians continue to be a seminal driver and source of quality information about how we can all help in the fight for survival of our planet. Tomorrow, I head to Northern Cheyenne, the Northern Cheyenne tribe in Montana, to begin a digital preservation project entitled Seeking Immortality, where we're going to record and digitally preserve their language using virtual reality and 360-degree video. But of course, we must ensure that today we protect and preserve planet Earth for future generations, their great grandchildren. It's in our hands and it's our responsibility. And with greater knowledge and rapidly increasing technology, I'm confident that we will turn things around quickly, that we will leave future generations so much of the beauty that is in our world now and even healthier, more sustainable in the future. That's also more in harmony with our natural world. That's why I'm so honored that we have so many experts here with us today. As an EDI and all other high priority issues, however, we must move beyond talk and verbal support and actually start taking actions as individuals and as a society. So I want to welcome all of you and our esteemed speakers and attendees, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us as we celebrate Earth Day together. The entire proceeding will be recorded, transcribed, and all slide decks will be posted in our new sustainability area of our website in our iLibrary. And so, Alfredo, if you could drop that URL of the iLibrary would be great. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to Loida Garcia-Febo, who will moderate today's event. Welcome, Loida.
Thank you, Dr. Chow, and welcome, everyone. Happy Earth Day, and thank you for joining us to celebrate Mother Earth. Welcome, students, professors, alumni, library workers, everyone. And there are a number of people attending live today, and we know that this recording will be shared with all these different people I mentioned during the week, and so they can also know what we talked about today and discuss in their classes. So this is recorded for posterity and it's wonderful. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to ask our colleagues at the San Jose State University to share my presentation. Great. Well, today, the San Jose State University iSchool is celebrating Earth Day, featuring short films and a conversation with librarians, leaders, and colleagues I've known for many years who are leading sustainable efforts. Established in 1970, Earth Day has grown into a global celebration, mobilizing 1 billion people every year. The whole world celebrates Earth Day, and many also celebrate Earth Month. I am delighted to collaborate with the iSchool to increase awareness about sustainability, development, and preserving our planet through new blog posts, videos, and events like this one. So stay tuned to the iSchool communication channels to find out how to participate and to learn about how can libraries contribute to preserve the planet. The communication channels are Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. The iSchool is everywhere. Across the nations and territories, libraries and librarians are celebrating Earth Day. As I said, we love Mother Earth. Next slide. The Morris Library at the University of Delaware is co-sponsoring an Earth Day Mapathon. Next slide. The West Valley Regional Branch Library of Los Angeles Public Library hosted an event about eco vehicles. And the next slide, Luisa Valderrama Public School in Puerto Rico, my island, collaborated with the local town's Earth Day celebrations, featuring 4 days of storytelling, crafts, and guided tours of a state forest with free transportation provided to participants. And that there is one of my very esteemed colleagues, the school librarian. She's in all her glory there. Next slide. Today is a great day to encourage each other to inspire our communities into a more environmentally sustainable way of action. Because our environments are endangered by climate change and other threats, including social inequalities, everyone should strive to protect the environment through sustainable development. This includes all types of libraries. Libraries are essential to development and sustainability. Libraries are development accelerators. Next slide. So get a library card. And I will intersperse some of these slides because I heard we have students here, so we have to make this a little bit more modern, I think. So yes, it's important that all of us obtain a library card. Next slide. What do we librarians mean when we talked about sustainability? The ALA and its Sustainability Roundtable have stated that to thrive and evolve into the future, next slide, ALA must adopt the triple bottom line mindset of sustainability. And organizations' practices must be not only economically feasible, but also socially equitable and environmentally sound. It is important to note that, next slide, ENSULIB, the Environment, Sustainability, and Libraries section of the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions, IFLA, they have also stated their belief that green and sustainable libraries take into account, next slide, environmental, economic, and social sustainability. So by now, we should have learned that, right? Environmentally sound, socially equitable, and economically feasible. The triple bottom line theory expands conventional business success metrics to include an organization's contributions to social well-being, environmental health, and a just economy. So these bottom line categories are often referred to as the 3 Ps. Next slide. People, planet, and prosperity. The United Nations includes those and also peace and partnerships as the pillars of sustainability, and they use the 5 pillars. The triple bottom line is one of the core values of the ALA Sustainability Roundtable, and the others are equity, diversity, and inclusion work, resilience, and transforming communities. Libraries as a second responder, an essential partner to their community's needs and aspirations. ALA is a good example of an organization walking the walk, and all libraries can consider this and discuss how they could follow up, right? The association is applying a social justice framework to its strategic directions. And I'm very happy to say that we approved that while I was president, so it still stays in place. I also agree with IFLAS and SULIB, the green and sustainable libraries may be of any size, but they have a clear sustainability agenda. Therefore, everyone can contribute. And this is very important because the Sustainable Development Report from 2022, which is the most recent one by the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network, revealed that for the second year in a row, the world is no longer making progress on sustainable development. Next slide. There was no progress on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals established by the United Nations, and they are a call to action to end poverty, improve lives and prospects of everyone, everywhere, and protect the planet while tackling climate change and working to preserve life on land and life underwater. The report identified causes for this situation. There are new diseases. There is an urgent need for climate action, attention to biodiversity threats, human rights. There is massive transformation in tech, intensified polarization, and insecurity. The pandemic definitely deeply impacts our world, reversing progress in sustainable development. Next, for instance, in the area of good health, which is goal 3, the impressive gains made in recent years, declining infant and maternal mortality rates and turning the tide on HIV/AIDS, are threatened. Next slide. In the area of no hunger, which is goal 2, COVID-19 exposed weakness in global food supply chains. We all experience that still now. But millions of people around the world, including in our nation, wake up hungry every day. Next slide. In the area of no poverty, goal 1, Oxfam estimated that up to 500 million people could be back into poverty. Next slide. In the area of decent work, goal 8, about 1.6 billion people work in the informal economy. That's about half of the global workforce. The International Labour Organization reported that they are in immediate danger of having their livelihoods decimated. And more than 1 in 6 young people have lost their jobs since the pandemic. And those that are still at work have seen their hours reduced. Next slide. About quality education, that's goal 4. The pandemic re-emphasized the digital divide and the right to internet access, particularly for those in rural areas. The United Nations Development Program estimates that by improving digital connectivity and closing the digital divide, we can rescue children not learning because of school closures. Next slide. Strong institutions, goal 16, that was also affected. As we have seen, elections were postponed in at least 18 countries, right? This is global level. And there is unrest around the world. Governments, particularly in fragile contexts, are under great pressure to deliver digital services and social protection, and to function in ways that advance social cohesion while upholding human rights and the rule of law. But they are not very successful, unfortunately, across the world. Although the panorama looks and sounds chaotic, there are great opportunities for libraries to contribute to not leave anyone behind during this, what the UN has called, next slide, the Decade of Action for all sustainable development, for roads, for water, for ecosystems, civil society, everywhere. Mary Robinson, past Prime Minister of Ireland and a keynote speaker during the IFLA Congress in Dublin. Next slide. Last year shared a phrase she heard from Indigenous women. When faced with chaos, these women will say, "What if our best world is still ahead of us?" It is a very uplifting concept, and I think we should try to say it more often and mostly more during these times. Why are libraries important for a sustainable world and for delivering the sustainable development goals? Yes, next slide. Libraries play an important and unique role in providing access to information. We know that, right? We have librarians in the house, but let's put this in context. That the information can help to eradicate hunger, improve people's education, increase equity in cities, move forward research, innovation, and smart cities. That's where we are heading if we're not there yet. In addition, information supports the promotion of community awareness about resilience, climate change, and a sustainable future. Libraries are also leading by example by taking steps to reduce their environmental footprint. Sustainable development impacts all areas of life. Therefore, it concerns all types of libraries. And libraries are strengthening the backbone of our societies. They are also contributing to the areas of culture, equity, justice. And this is exactly, next slide, what we presented last year at the United Nations High-Level Political Forum. And it's coming up again. We're going to be there. We attended with delegates from IFLA and share how libraries at a local level are impacting global development by strengthening the central fabric of our societies and contributing to the social and cultural capital of the societies. Through the work they do on a daily basis, we are contributing, providing information in different formats, and partnering to provide programs and services to better the education of individuals and the communities we serve. Yes, the work we do is that important. So take a minute, take a moment to think about that. Next slide. We can build on the takeaways from the high-level political forum. And these include an agreement that we humans need to take concrete actions. Secure political commitment, we need courage, and we need more actionable conversations about how discrimination stops the progress of development and sustainability. These are the themes and conversations happening at the UN. Next slide. There was also a shared belief about how we cannot have sustainability without peace, that we must protect our common values for sustainability, and that we cannot continue ignoring human rights, and we must respect the rights of all people. And so those conversations, I see them, that we are reflecting them also in our library world. How are libraries then investing in our planet? Next slide. Get ready, because we are going out today. We have many examples. Next slide. And I want to show them to you. Libraries, we're still in that slide. Libraries worldwide are developing programs and services that support development, because we're going out. Had to get ready. As libraries in the USA serve populations coming from different countries, it is valuable to be informed about library services in different regions of the world. Next slide. For instance, in Africa, the Laterbiok Chi Library in Ghana carried out a campaign to provide access to sexual and reproductive health education in the library to curb teen pregnancy. The first time they conduct this initiative, a total of 2,008 children benefit. The project continues with monthly events, and the library partnered with the Ghanaian Minister of Education and Health, members of parliament, Planned Parenthood, churches, and other governmental and non-governmental agencies. So you see an example of how partnerships are helping libraries to help communities achieve development and maintain sustainability. Next slide. Asia and Oceania. My Tree House is a green library for kids inside the National Library of Singapore. The goal of the library, built with a sustainable, efficient, and eco-friendly system, is to teach about green values and caring for the environment. To this effect, library collections, storytelling, and varied programming feature themes of sustainability for the little ones. The library bookmobile also features these themes when carrying out outreach in communities in Singapore. Next slide. In Europe, the Požega Public Library in Serbia, in collaboration with a local school, hosts the SDGs Book Club Serbia that is featured on the United Nations page and is also coordinated by my colleague Daniela Skokovic, and that she was a member of the ALA United Nations Task Force. The goal is to improve reading skills of the high school students. The students create lists of books on themes like hunger and poverty, prepare summaries of the books they have read, and translate them into the languages taught in school. I think they are teaching Italian, French, and English besides Serbian. And then they give presentations to the students. So it's a very interesting book club. Next slide. Latin America and the Caribbean. BiblioStreet is an outreach project from Chile designed by the Antofagasta Health Services in partnerships with the town library, the regional library, and the Viva Library, another local library. They want to help the homeless. The 5-month program target at-risk alcohol and drug users to bring them back to health networks, employment, and to expand the opportunities within the community. Participants receive digital literacy classes, reading and writing workshops, reflective analysis, and storytelling. And at the conclusion of the program, participants can share their stories with their community. I hope you are inspired and you're getting ideas, maybe how to adapt or how to build on something that you hear here today. Next slide. How specifically then libraries are contributing to sustainable development? There's much more. As part of the American Library Association's United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, a task force I chair, we created charts that demonstrate how academic, public, and school libraries are contributing, for example, in the following areas. Next slide. Public health. Goal 3, good health and wellness. Scheduling, and these are the examples, scheduling events about wellness and yoga, stress reduction during final exams, group exercise sessions, and therapy dogs. Goal 8, decent work and economic growth, support faculty and student research through library collections, providing consultation and subject matter experts who can also help entrepreneurs. Objective 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Through supporting research, libraries are supporting innovation and business initiatives at universities. And libraries also provide programs for the community to learn about how smart cities and infrastructure. Goal 13 on the next slide, it's about climate action. Libraries, university libraries are supporting their campus sustainability initiatives. And also libraries, public libraries, school libraries are carrying out exchanges of used clothes and presenting do-it-yourself events to teach people to create things. And many of them are presenting series about talks like this today about sustainability. Next slide. The ALA Task Force on the SDGs created table templates like the one we have on the screen featuring all the goals, and to which libraries can add the library's name and logo. Next slide. They also can add address and a custom message to share with stakeholders and library patrons, and they're all free and downloadable from the website. To show how libraries are contributing to sustainability in their communities and in their cities. And these charts are being used, for example, by Los Angeles Public Library to, we are still there, yes, by Los Angeles Public Library to take it to the mayor's office and say, we are contributing to the community. And what a nice way of presenting most of the services, correlating them to a goal. And so it's a great flyer for advocacy as well. Next slide. In addition to these examples, libraries are hosting SDG book clubs, like you saw. And to support this activity, libraries can download free again and beautiful bookmarks created by the task force to show again how libraries are accelerating development in their communities. And what is the path forward? When I lectured about development to librarians from the Hemispheric University Consortium for all university libraries across the Americas, and that is their consortium, and they cover North, Central, and South America, they were interested in 5 priority areas within sustainable development. And I'm going to share them with you today. They are climate action, business entrepreneurship, technological and inclusive innovation, crime and corruption, and public health. And along these areas, I will also share more examples from different regions of the world. And I ask you to think which will be priority areas for your libraries or for your university students, and how would you support sustainability in relation to those areas. We start. Next slide. Climate action. I am in agreement with the publications of IFLA stating that climate action is not just for politicians. In its document on libraries and sustainability, IFLA has outlined 2 key roles for libraries in this area. Libraries are role models and educators, fostering understanding of issues amongst citizens and helping them to learn to change their own behavior. Libraries are contributing to development in the area of environmental resilience by, for instance, helping libraries destroyed by hurricanes. And here we have it on the screen when we help the libraries in Puerto Rico. Next slide. Libraries are also helping villages get renewable energy through solar panels and through the placement of clean water wells in libraries' facilities. Libraries are collaborating with scientists to study the environment, and librarians are hosting events where they discuss our role in providing information through collections and guides for people to understand their behavior. How humans can preserve the planet. That's important. Libraries have become leaders in sustainable buildings. Libraries are also teaching sustainable planting practices through community gardens within libraries' properties. Next slide. There are libraries supporting research with birds, dolphins, and bats. And I met those librarians in Alaska, and other areas related to life on land and life underwater, like the UN classified it. This contributes to the preservation of our planet. Next slide. The International Federation of Libraries, IFLA, has stated that libraries have an important role to play as partners in implementing action for climate empowerment. ACE, I love that name, that acronym. The UN Framework Convention on Climate Change adopted ACE to empower all members of society to engage in climate action through 6 elements: climate change, education and public awareness, training, public participation, public access to information, and international cooperation on those issues. Now, how can your library contribute in the area of climate action? And that is a question for you, right? You take it back and discuss with your colleagues or your students. Next, the next area is business entrepreneurship. Supporting entrepreneurs is proven a strategy for building a strong economy and helping businesses get off the ground and sustaining them during the early stages helps create jobs, income, and economic growth. Besides the business centers libraries have available for entrepreneurs to start the business plans and to do market research, and by the way, that's how the founder of Overdrive started, many people also create their website using the computers at the libraries and consult guides to develop and maintain their small businesses. Libraries are taking part in job fairs at universities, helping students understand finances with guides and offering courses for financial literacy. Next slide. In our country, the USA, financial literacy has been greatly promoted by the ALA Association of College and Research Libraries, ACRL, which had a president who promoted financial literacy as his presidential theme. In addition to that, libraries are providing spaces for fairs where entrepreneurs exhibit their work, giving women high visibility. And these events are hosted in partnership with university groups, community and city financial groups. The chambers of commerce are important too. Next slide. In Rwanda, the government organizes partnerships to ensure that organizations are equipped with the necessary tools to help young people. And these organizations are also supporting young entrepreneurs, including many women. And they are also supporting information for entrepreneurs through the main connectivity tool, the mobile phone. Next slide. Technological and inclusive innovation. The UN SDGs and the development report from 2021 indicated that the first signs of improvement from the deep impact of the pandemic on industry, innovation, and infrastructure included the manufacture of medium and high-tech products, which is fueling the economic recovery. So everybody needs technology and digital connectivity. And so the production of that, it's amazing as well. Aruba has a national effort, including libraries, to promote technological inclusive innovation nationwide with focus on lifting up women and girls. And that's why it's inclusive innovation. Next slide. Several countries are developing programs with drones that carry medicines and tools for health professionals to support nurses and gynecologists to help women. These are the superheroes. We have them here. Next slide. Geo-tracking is becoming an important area to help people track institutions using their mobile phones to find the services they need. Digital wallets are very important in empowering women to seek medical help. Next slide. Libraries in technology hub cities like Austin in Texas are increasing participation in events like South by Southwest, a global technology event held in Austin. Their participation includes events and information distribution. They also bring the experts into the library during that week for symposiums and talks, and are exploring different alliances to support development in the tech and innovation in their cities. Next slide. Crime and corruption. The fight against corruption underpins all efforts to achieve sustainability. And this pertains to Goal 16 from the SDGs. Unfortunately, crime and corruption is everywhere. Integrity, ethics, transparency are crucial to achieve progress, sustainability, and the development of our world. And libraries in different parts of the world are carrying out forums, community talks, and conversations with authors and specialists from NGOs, non-governmental organizations, to start talking about awareness on how, crime and corruption can divert the progress of sustainability and development. One of the events we presented at the high-level political forum at the UN dealt with Goal 16 and integrity in public information. Another different example is what about this area is in the next slide, and is the infographic that was created by IFLA. In the next slide, to help misinformation and features the process to help patrons determine if their sources of information are reliable. So we have two different examples here under crime and corruption. The infographic is available for general information and in many languages on the IFLA website. Next slide. The social media, it's another way to dispel misinformation. And we see that even the United Nations is now on TikTok. So think about that. Next, the freedom to read is another way that in which we can preserve the dispel this misinformation and also preserve the freedom to read. And on April 24, this Monday, there is the day that we have named Right to Read Day. And it's a day to show the community how show your commitment to the First Amendment. And this is a really new event, and I'm trying to share with you. So bear with me a moment. We want to show our commitment to the First Amendment and the things that you can do. Let's see. Borrow a library book from at risk of being banned. Write a letter to the editor or an elected official. Stage support for libraries, and there are many different ways. And report censorship. You can also read a banned book and make a video of that. And lastly, join United Against Book Bans. This is a very new event, was announced this week, and I wanted to share with you. Next, and this is the last of the priority areas that the libraries from the Americas, North, Central, and South America, wanted me to talk about, is public health. The pandemic has halted or reversed progress in health and shortened life expectancy. That is a fact, unfortunately, and is still a reality. Worldwide, countries are developing efforts according to health needs. For example, Laos developed a nationwide government program to provide comprehensive sex education and raise awareness about violence against women. As we know, during the pandemic, governments partnered with libraries to provide vaccines and information to guide citizens. And the United Nations is very concerned about people's mental health. It is the top concern from the UN 22 Human Development Report. And before we go to the next slide, I want to mention that the 3 women on the screen are librarians that worked very hard during the pandemic to serve the public. Next slide. And so as a resource, right, to help the world with this crisis on mental health, on April 4, San Jose State University High School hosted this conference, Mental Health and Wellness, Library Workers Thriving in Uncertain Times. I was fortunate to curate this event. We had hours of sessions with strategies to support mental health and wellness. So I encourage everyone to visit the page. They are very great quality speakers and the content is superb. Now, as we can see, all libraries are contributing to sustainability. But since we are in an academic environment, I thought of sharing some examples of how academic libraries are investing in our planet. Next. And this was said by Gerald Beasley, and he was the former director of Cornell Libraries, and I collaborated with him a few years ago. In addition to sharing knowledge and publicizing the goals and having practical advice available to community members wanting to turn theory into action, libraries will continue to support the kind of interdisciplinary research and teaching that focus on the SDGs. And so that's very, very important for us, for academic libraries. Next slide. The SDG Compact Fellows, that was created by the UN in collaboration with the International Publishers Association. And they developed these top actions tips for academia. And we have tips, for instance, that include strategize and advocate for SDGs, support research, share strengths, guide users to sustainability content, curate collections, refine metadata, cultivate literacy, and of course, walk the sustainability walk by aligning with campus sustainability initiatives. That's very important, right? For the different units to be aligned. Next slide. The Sustainable Development Solutions Network is an initiative from the UN, and they have compiled case studies about accelerating education for sustainability. And this is at universities. And it includes cases from all over the world. I'm going to share one. There is a case from the University of Bristol in the UK. Their Sustainable Development Unit has been developed by a multidisciplinary teaching team, including academics from the Faculty of Science, Faculty of Engineering, Faculty of Social Science and Law, and the Faculty of Arts. Is truly interdisciplinary, and it is part of the Bristol Futures curriculum. And it is based on the provision of skills, awareness, and agency to undergraduate students at the university. Fascinating. Check it out. Next slide. Librarians at the University of Michigan have developed one of the most comprehensive library research guides I've seen. And it's a selection of scholarly databases, data sources, programs, news. They have target information resources to show overall the SDGs framework and research, and also international progress of the individual SDGs, the individual goals. Next slide. I wanted to give a shout out to colleagues of mine because their Sustainable Libraries cookbook, Ray Poon and Gary Schaefer, includes topics that connect to the sustainability, also to the UN SDGs. And something very important about this book is that it includes lesson plans, learning guides, research activities, and projects that focus on sustainability in disciplinary and interdisciplinary approaches. For instance, from STEM, data literacy, to campus sustainability, to indigenous environmental justice. So look at it, look it up. Next slide. Libraries for Sustainable Development is an initiative from the Mortenson Center that's pretty new as well at the University of Illinois, an Urbana campaign. And they have introduced the concept of information action briefs. It's a resource guide to implement transformational actions using information to advance the UN goals. For instance, you will select one of the goals and work with questions to provide information about the contribution of your institution in the area. And some of the questions are, what is your goal? Why you should care? How is this related to information? And what can I or the profession do? It also comes with an infographic to offer a visual representation of the goals. Next slide. Librarians are also researching ways in which libraries can support development. Nathalise Cardoso conducted the research Social Responsibility of Library Science in Transforming Society to Achieve the SDGs, the goals. And as a result, she developed a calculator to help librarians know how the libraries are contributing to achieve the goals. Librarians need to answer a set of questions to receive a score and then see how the libraries are doing. Next slide. And another result of Cardoso's research was a checklist for libraries to provide insights into the topic of the SDGs and to encourage more librarians to think about actions and implement them in libraries. So I recommend both types for all libraries. Other resources, next slide, that you can consult for more examples are the IFLA Library Map of the World. It's full of stories like the one I shared earlier from Ghana and from Chile, and you can search by country. This is a database. Next slide. The Management of Library Association section of IFLA developed a webinar series to feature library associations and libraries work in the area of the SDGs, the goals around the world. And the series name is Sustainable Development Goals and Library Associations. I'm leading that effort with a very good team. And we are presenting this with the different regional divisions of IFLA, the New Professionals Group, and SULIP, which is the Environment, Sustainability, and Library section. The first webinar featured the North American region the recording is already available on the website. And we have scheduled webinars with the Middle East and North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, in Asia and Oceania. So monitor the page to know more about the exact dates and times. To close, how can you start aligning with library priorities? Next slide. First, it is vital to understand sustainability. The triple bottom line theory mentioned earlier, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and the current situation of your communities. Recognize how each one of the goals are aligned with your organization's goals and strategies. Identify stories and examples of the impact of libraries in the community. You can build on that. Increase awareness at all levels of society about the crucial contributions and how libraries can make and are making. And I would argue that the most important one is that we believe that libraries can make a difference. That's very important. My recommendations, next slide, specifically about the role of librarians. Introduce sustainability principles and the goals to the patrons. Present how libraries are contributing to development, to decision makers, and we have librarians here, so I'm only going to mention a few of those, right? Libraries are a key player, bettering literacy, digital and media literacy, and lifelong learning, promoting right to access information, promoting digital inclusion for all, and many more and you can use your libraries or your region as examples. It is vital, though, that we continue supporting research. Next slide. It supports innovation to move development and sustainability forward. And for these, libraries must collaborate with civic society and government, support women one step at a time, seek innovation to dismantle systematic barriers to, for example, protect women, support behavioral innovation and human-centered innovation. It is time to move to concrete actions and implementations. Next time, dedicate time. Let's stay in that one. Dedicate time and resource to make the library the center of the community, which is essential to sustainable development. And it is a development accelerator that is helping individuals to build new set of skills that will better their education and help them to better their prospects in life. To summarize, next slide. I hope that you have time to unpack all this information received today together with your colleagues and classmates. Inform yourselves about sustainability, the SDGs and their potential. Read about what other libraries and organizations are doing. Review the examples I share. Come back to this recording. Discuss with your administration and colleagues and fellow students and take action. Next slide. Libraries are, now we can all say it together, essential to sustainability. One slide back. They are key to social cohesion. And by building sustainable bridges through teaching and learning with communities served by libraries, we can unlock the potential for people to thrive today and tomorrow. And next slide, libraries and library workers are investing in our planet. Now we can say, yes, I know that. And libraries are contributing to help societies to build back better and smarter. And that's what we need. We need each one of you to work together. All right, and we are at the end, and I think I took a little bit more time, but maybe there are some. Maybe we can look. I don't see any questions, and so if that is the case, then we will go to the videos that we have today. Let me just check. Oh, hello, Brazil! Genison Geraldo's here. Wonderful. He is a researcher in the areas of SDGs as well, has been at the UN. I'm just checking the chat. Okay, I don't see questions. I guess you're all processing this information. What we're going to do is that I'm going to follow the program for today. And now we are going to reflect on all these different things that I've shared today. So much information. I hope you will come back to the recording. And I am going to share first a video from the Grand Canyon, and then a video from Queen's Library. And these videos are very meaningful because today we are going to have a conversation with library leaders that are leading in the area of sustainability. And we have some of them that, for instance, have been volunteer at the Grand Canyon Library in the middle of this amazing natural spot. And also we have another amazing librarian, really cool librarian from Queen's Library, and the story on how they rebuild after a hurricane is just very, very inspiring. So stay with us. First, let's watch the video from the Grand Canyon. And I need a moment to make sure I have it here. Okay. Stay with us. This video, we're going to watch it for about 4 minutes and a half. It's very inspiring.
Grand Canyon is more than just a view, more than just a two-dimensional landscape. There are so many lessons and ways to explore Grand Canyon. It is a laboratory. It is a virtual classroom. The diversity here is unparalleled. There's a huge landscape that is just begging to be explored, and it really just takes a moment to stop in a side canyon or sit under the trees and really get to know all the things that this landscape has to offer. It really does start to put things in perspective, I think, for a lot of people. You suddenly feel quite small, and your problems seem quite small as you're standing here on the edge of the canyon, because there's just so much to try to take in. In Grand Canyon, you'll find a whole host of environments, everything from cool fir forests to hot, dry deserts, riparian zones, and over 1 million acres of wild landscape that have been the stage for human exploration and inspiration for generations. Most of Grand Canyon's visitors first arrive on the South Rim. Very few of those folks actually find their way over to the North Rim, and even fewer descend into the canyon itself. Statistics tell us that only about 5% of our visitors actually will drop down below the rim. These folks arrive at the canyon and they find their way to the first viewpoint. They look down into this two-dimensional landscape and feel that they have experienced Grand Canyon. But what they're missing out on is the opportunity to really explore the inner canyon and experience the diversity that this place has to offer. This park has a broad elevational change. So as you descend into the canyon, for every 1,000 feet, you actually gain 3 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit. So at the river's edge, the temperature can be 15 to 25 degrees warmer than on the South Rim. You leave behind the forests, which are more typical of the rim environments, and you enter into a landscape filled with blackbrush and cacti, plants that are more typical of and adapted to a desert environment. Traveling further into the inner canyon, you arrive at the Colorado River, and along its edge, you will find a very critical riparian habitat that extends the length of the river itself. We have seeps and springs nestled in side canyons that have a variety of species that are dependent on them. The diversity in the springs alone is unparalleled to any other location in the park. Almost 94% of the park is proposed wilderness. As such, it is managed and protected as though it is wilderness. In Grand Canyon's wilderness, you won't find cars. It's a roadless area where natural quiet is protected. There are places where you can descend below the canyon, where the air is still, where you have only yourself and the rocks around you and the plants, and suddenly your senses become tuned to the lizards scurrying in the rocks, or the sounds of the canyon wren, or the dripping of the springs. Those are the experiences that are wild. Evidence of human life in Grand Canyon extends back thousands of years. Some of our first explorers arrived on the rim, peered down into the canyon as so many people do today, but they saw it as an impassable chasm. They saw it as lifeless, undesirable, a place that no one would ever visit intentionally. These expeditions opened up the opportunity for artists and photographers to capture the imagery of Grand Canyon and share it with the nation and ultimately the world, which really helped to bring about our appreciation for the scenic value of this landscape.
Hi, Loida. Your video just finished.
Are we still here? Yes. Okay. Now we're going to watch our second and last video, and it's really inspired.
Your audio, Loida. If you could just get a little closer. And what I'll do too, if you want to pick back up,
Okay, great.
I will share that for you.
Can you
I'll
hear
share
me
the
now?
next video for you. Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay, fantastic. So I hope that you're still here with us. Now we are going to share our second and last video for today. And it's a very inspiring story about how the Queens Public Library rebuilt after Hurricane Sandy. And you can start sharing now.
When something like this happens, I don't care where it is, people have a tendency, I believe, to lose hope, especially when nobody's answering questions, especially when there's nowhere to go to get answers. So nobody knew where to go, what to do, what services were available. You had people with no water, no heat.
There was no power in our apartment. There is no heat. And there is, of course, no water.
It was chaos down there at that point, with people looking for information and just trying to find out, where they could find loved ones, trying to have prescriptions filled. That Saturday, right after the storm, our Far Rockaway Library opened up without power, without heat, without lights, without anything, with our manager who was down there with her staff.
We love Miss Anderson, the manager for this library. We love Miss Anderson. They was giving out food. They gave out clothes. They had a generator. And everybody got to power their phones and call their family.
Every 5 minutes, we were getting calls from different synagogues, different churches, asking what could they donate. So that was a help for them. It gave them some hope.
I had to come get my books. I had took out 12 books the day before the hurricane, and I read them in a 3-day time span. So I needed my books.
We had 62 libraries to do inventory on to see which ones had power, which ones had water damage, which ones had wind damage.
This building is total. There's about 60,000 items in there that circulate, and tables, chairs, desks. There's an adult learning center in here where we do GED programs. All those materials, records are ruined. Millions of dollars worth of equipment and furniture. And 3 of the buildings had just recently been renovated. Brand new interiors. We sent the book bus down here so we could quickly get some kind of service for the folks that live down here.
Well, I saw the bus, and so I was curious, and I came in and I got information on how to apply for FEMA. And I also wanted to use the computer because my power is out.
It's nice to have someplace warm to charge things and get on the internet. It's nice to feel like there's a civilization outside of everything that happens.
There were a lot of people that wanted to help. They didn't know the community, and we are in every one of these communities, so we became that glue that kind of connected a lot of the resources.
It kind of makes it feel like even though a lot of things got destroyed, this is still here, like the neighborhood can go back to normal. Even though it's just a bus, it's like the library has always been here. Like this was the one area everybody came to. So to see the mobile library here is like, it's kind of like it brings the neighborhood together.
I love my library. I had to get my books. See, I had to get James Patterson. Where is he? First copy. And I got it. And nobody's getting it till I read it and bring it back.
Thank you. What an inspiring video. And the story is about maybe 10 years old, but it's still very inspiring. I'm going to ask our guest speakers and the panelists for this conversation now to please turn the cameras on. And I am so happy that you are here with us. Like I said, this recording is going to live forever. And so you are, I'm sure, library schools and also colleagues from different regions of the world will come back to these because it's a still very emerging area within librarianship, the sustainability themes. And so everybody wants to know a lot about that. We're going to start, and I'm going to ask that you please introduce yourselves. And so I will just ask a number of you. In that way, our attendees will know you better. We'll start with Nick Buron.
Good afternoon here from New York City, from Queens in New York City. Thank you very much, Loida, and thank you for your presentation. It was fantastic. Much enjoyed it. My name is Nick Buron. I'm the Chief Librarian of the Queens Public Library. Queens here, one of the 5 boroughs of New York City. We are an independent, not-for-profit organization library. We are separate from our other 2 wonderful colleague libraries here as well. We serve 2.4 million people, half of which were born outside the United States, from over 150 different countries speaking just as many languages. So it is a wonderfully diverse part of the big city, and it's a big city in and of itself of 2.4 million people. I've been here for a little over 29 years, starting as a librarian, and for the last 7, I have worked as the chief librarian. I am active in I have been active in ALA since 1995. I am about to serve my 5th term on ALA Council. I have I'm actually on an IFLA committee as well as the information coordinator. I'm a very busy person, just like you, Loida. And I am honored to say that in 2006 and 2008, I was on the San Jose State University Library School Youth Committee when they were going through their accreditation. So I actually have a connection to San Jose State. So I'm very pleased in the library school to be here. Thank you very much, Loida.
Wonderful. And we were colleagues also at one point in our life, for almost 12 years. So a long time, really a small world. Wonderful world. Thank you, Nick. I will now ask Christine Jacobi, whom I met many years and I haven't seen, but I'm so happy to reconnect because you have such a fascinating history of volunteering in libraries. And please tell us more about that.
Okay. First of all, I'm retired and I love retirement. I also love libraries. And happy Earth Day to everybody. I'm the past president of the New England Library Association. That was a wonderful experience. I was a former volunteer librarian at the research library at the Galapagos. And that was the Charles Darwin Research Station Library, which is a research library. I'll talk about it later. And that's in Ecuador, obviously, but really in the Galapagos. And I also was a volunteer librarian at the Grand Canyon National Park Research Library. So I had 2 wonderful sabbaticals, and it's really great to be an academic librarian and a technical services librarian and get to take your experience as a cataloger and move it out into the world. Thank you.
That's fascinating. I can't wait to hear more about that, Christine. And thank you so much for joining us. And now I would like to introduce Leah Plocharczyk.
Yes, that's correct.
Wonderful. Welcome, Leah. I actually met Leah online first through email because I was, as the ALA past president, you become the chair of the jury that selects the library. I Love My Librarian Award. So it's a very interesting world. And Leah's story really impacted us. The research is done in many components, but the one I remember most was her research to support marine life. And so welcome, Leah, and please introduce your colleagues as well.
Yes, absolutely. My name is Leah Plocharczyk. I am the director of the John D. MacArthur Campus Library for Florida Atlantic University. We have 6 branch campuses that stretch all up and down the coastline of East Florida. I happen to be at one of the northern branch campuses in Jupiter, Florida. We are very fortunate to be close to the ocean. My 2 colleagues are joining me today. I have Don Frood, who is a librarian for our main campus in Boca Raton, and Dr. Amir Abtabi, who is a mechanical engineer. And it is true that I was involved with research with marine stranding networks. I would love to talk about that a little bit more later in the conversation. But my 2 colleagues here, I must give them credit. They have applied for and gotten a solar grant through EBSCO, and they will be working with students and community members to implement a solar array for our library here at the Jupiter campus. And we're just so pleased. And thank you for having us. We're very happy to be here, and happy Earth Day, everyone.
Wonderful. And welcome again, Dr. Abtahi and Dr. Frood. Well, why do you think there is momentum to bring sustainability awareness to communities? Why is this happening in your experience, Kristen?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I found your presentation fascinating because I've been away from library land, we'll call it, and I believe that the sustainability and the power of the library to help with all of those goals for the UN is just phenomenal. And I don't know how to walk that back because I'm not in a library, but somebody else, please.
Nick.
Thank you. I'm going to agree with Kristen and say it was phenomenal. But I think that the drive is, the I think it's gotten out that the sustainability is more than just being nice to the planet, which is extremely important, especially on this Earth Day. And then when you see, these 17 sustainable development goals, you really start to see, A, that it affects every part of our lives, but also what I think is absolutely critical is that it empowers libraries to realize, wait a minute, I could do more than just environmental stuff. And actually, sustainability counts for a lot of things that not only that we already do, but it makes it easy to be ambitious about things that we can do.
Wonderful. And I know Queens Library has so many examples of that. And Leah, why do you think there is a momentum about this?
Well, actually, it's funny because Dawn and Amir and I were discussing this very question just prior to the presentation. And Amir had a really interesting point. He thinks a lot of it has to do with the younger generation as well as the older generation. So the younger generation is sort of impassioned and excited about this movement towards sustainability, and they're teaching their parents and they're wanting to move things forward. And then the older generation who's been around and seen the changes that have occurred throughout the world and the globe are just kind of in awe of what's going on. So it was kind of interesting to think that there was this push coming from both the young as well as the more senior population. And I don't know if Amir, if you want to add anything to that.
No, I think you said it perfectly. We see really pressure. I'm a professor of engineering here in Florida Atlantic University, and I see both the very young and also the senior, the retired, and we have here in Florida a good portion of our population really inquiring about that, and somewhat worried the older generation who have a longer view of the changes that are occurring, I think have a better take on this, and they're worried. And the younger people who know that they're going to be basically dealing with issues also. I feel that the rest of the population is too busy running around to think about these problems as in deep as they should. So thank you, Leah. You said it perfectly.
It is so true. And we see how Gen Z, right, they're called, it's really driving many changes. And that's why I changed my presentation too. I added a little bit of modernity, I hope, because, they are there and we need to be where they are. And it just, enhances and complements what we do. And we've seen it from the different movements, social movements, to elections, perhaps, to different world situations. So we need to go with them. They are the future that is here already. So I agree with you. And now let's talk about, in your experience then, how are libraries helping to preserve the planet? And I know you have so many experiences because you work with three different settings that are fascinating. And that's why I invited you, right? I think this can enrich the conversation and also serve as a model for librarians in different types, regions of the world. And I'm going to start with Kristen.
Okay, I prepared a talk, and I'm just going to give it. So, although I'm retired, I can speak to my experiences. I was fortunate enough to have an academic library career and have these 2 sabbaticals. So in 2008, I spent 4 months in the Galapagos at the Charles Darwin Research Station Corley Library as an international volunteer. And although it's the oldest and largest library in the Galapagos, at the time it was a one-room library with a collection devoted to supporting the conservation of the island's unique biodiversity. The library was used by used by scientific staff, visiting researchers worldwide, local natural guides, pardon me, the local guides that take you on tours on yachts and things, they all have to be certified. So they always need to keep abreast of what's happening in the island environments and the activities on those islands. So the naturalist guides use the library. Student researchers from Ecuador universities came. The high school and primary grades students that are on the island, and volunteers. So those are all the people who use the library. And after years of having multiple international volunteer librarians, they hired a permanent coordinator, Edgardo Silverio. My Spanish is not so good. That was an interesting thing too, to be an English person with very small Spanish knowledge and then try to coordinate helping people who would come into the library who only spoke Spanish. He has taken so he's a permanent staff member now, and he has taken a proactive approach to his library, this library, which involves teaching the local population of the community, citizens and students, because they really don't grasp how fragile and special their location is that they live in. So he's propelled the library's collection into 21st century in a workaday operations, as well as the historical role of preserving the past. So his two-prong approach is sustain forward momentum on those two fronts, backward and forward. And then in 2016, I spent 4 months in the Grand Canyon, Arizona at the National Park working in the research library. Now, the other one was like a one-room location with an archive, and this one is more like I would call it a small public library. The collection houses general books, periodicals, government documents, of course, federal reports, pamphlets, DVDs, CDs, and videos on the Grand Canyon. The audiovisual room contains children's books. There is a real books room, which is where I worked. Subjects include natural history, geology of the Grand Canyon, astronomy, archaeology, history of the area and the native peoples in the region, hiking in the Grand Canyon and the surrounding areas, Grand Canyon government reports and studies, environmental education and interpretation methodologies, general natural history, National Park Service history and management, and Arizona and Utah history. The library is used by the National Park Service employees and interns, volunteers in the park. There's a training center, and that staff and students use it. The Grand Canyon semester students, the Grand Canyon Unified, of course, there's a school there. It's, a place. Unified School District faculty and students use the library. And then there's a Grand Canyon Association, which funds things, which is how I got money to live and eat there, and it supports them. So the full-time librarian that's there has developed a push technology that promotes library services, increases interaction with users, and grows library usage. He does a bi-weekly literature review and provides a curated list of research publications of interest to the staff of the Grand Canyon National Park via email every week. So he pushes it out instead of coming to their website. He pushes it out to all these people, and his categories are blogs and news, tools and resources, and he peer reviews journal citations with topics on archaeology, culture, history, preservation, climate change, human impact, ecology and environment, geology, GIS, sensors, methodologies, health and safety, incident command, emergency response, search and rescue, that happens on the canyon, right? And fire management, leadership, policy and compliance, paleontology, evolution, visitors interpretation, and water use. So both librarians have established awareness in their individual communities. Both teach and communicate the uniqueness of their particular environments. Both organizations are coping with sustainable tourism. That is a big, big piece of what they try to do and what that means and how it should work now and in the future. And to that end, I believe that both are helping to preserve and save the planet with as much library power as there is within their grasp for a sustainable future. So that was my blurb.
Thank you. That is fascinating. That's my next step in my career. After a few years, I'll be there in the Galapagos and also Grand Canyon. Thank you so much. Yes, of course, we are librarians, but to me, it's fascinating to hear the different services that these libraries provide, and they're all focused on sustainability because they have different habitats. It's just amazing. Thank you so much. And Leah.
Sure, I can talk a little bit about my work with the Marine Mammal Steering Network. As I mentioned, I'm on a branch campus here in Jupiter, Florida, east coast of Florida, and we're primarily known for our honors college. So we have a residential college on site, and a large portion of our student population at the honors college is science focused. And so as an initiative to enhance our student opportunities in the sciences, and also to allow the staff, the library staff, to broaden their scope of learning activities presented by the library, the Science Outreach Committee, which I was a member of, we partnered with a local organization called the Taurus Oceanographic Foundation. And its founder, Dr. Barbara Brunick, who is a cetacean biologist, which basically means she studies dolphins. And we formed a marine mammal steering network. And this network offered opportunities for students, faculty, staff, and community members to learn about the importance of protecting our marine mammals and our ocean ecosystem. The network applied for the letter of authority with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration to be the lead organization responsible for cetacean strandings that occur in Palm Beach County. And the group provided hands-on workshops that taught individuals what to do in case of a beaching. And all of this was held within our library. We had more than 60 members participate, which included students, staff, faculty from both the Jupiter and Boca Raton campus sites. And we were very fortunate to have community members and volunteers from St. Lucie County, Martin County, Palm Beach County, Broward County, Dade, Monroe, Manatee County, and even Lee County. So this stretched all the way down to Broward and over onto our Gulf Coast. And lectures and hands-on interactive workshops were given, which taught field techniques to everyone. And at the end of the two-part training session, members were then given professional certification, which enabled them to participate in future beach strandings. And then the second phase of our program was to provide internship opportunities for the students to partner with Taurus, the foundation, to gain school credits. So students had the option to complete a short-term internship, which taught skills in administrative duties, cataloging, scanning, database entry, and participation in an ongoing dolphin photo ID project and in behavioral studies. And this is where the fun begins. Students gained direct field skills in cetacean research. They accompanied Dr. Barbara Brunick, who was the biologist and the director of the foundation. And I got to attend. It was really exciting. I got to go out once a week on the research boat, and we went all up and down the coast of Palm Beach County. The participating students assisted in researching the local dolphin population up and down the coast, and for the very first time became the focus of a long-term effort to assess the conservation status of bottlenose dolphins and associated ecosystems. The short-term goal of the research was to obtain critical baseline data of the dolphins and their habitats, to create a photo ID catalog, which I assisted with, of all the individual dolphins, and we would recognize them by their dorsal fins and the unique traits and characteristics of each fin. And then each student went on the research boat and learned the very necessary duties needed to conduct the professional field research. So they got actual hands-on field research experience. And we had monthly meetings, and everyone completed 3 complete level A collection certification workshops so they could be certified to be first responders on the beach in case of these marine mammal strandings, which unfortunately do happen quite a bit in Florida.
And librarians in Florida are helping to save marine life there. You said the entire coast. It's amazing. So we had librarians like Christine helping with life on land, and like Leah and her colleagues with the life underwater. These are the classifications from the UN. This is fascinating. I want to take these clips and along with Nick and put it in a separate video and kind of like push it out too. It's just, I have already, my next step will be in the Galapagos, then I'm going to Florida. Nick.
Florida, the Galapagos, those are absolutely gorgeous places. I have not been to the Galapagos yet.
Well, because I was in Queens, so I now I have to go somewhere else, right?
And here, and I think this is really a good mix here because when we're talking about Queens, we're talking about 2.4 million people in a really small area of the globe. We live on top of each other here in New York City, and I think oftentimes we think of cities as environmental nightmares sometimes, but yet. On the plus side, and let me tell you, we got plenty of challenges, here in the big city in terms of how we need to, do our share to help the earth. But what we don't have to do is, the good news is that there really is a lot of good communal use of resources within a small group of people. And so, one of the first things I would say is we have an advantage of having 66 locations within our parameter. And so 99% of people are within a mile or a kilometer and a half, of our libraries, and able-bodied people are probably within a 20-minute walk of all of our libraries. And so while some libraries are big and some libraries are small, you can really access not only the material and shared material that we can bring to these individual libraries, but what libraries bring, and we can see it here, is that knowledgeable staff that is always in your community that can help you. One of the things that you saw, one of the things that you saw in the video really was not libraries. I'm not a big fan of libraries as the community center because I think that actually doesn't say enough, but as the center of community. And when your center of community actually gets destroyed, we come in whatever capacity, even if it's a small mobile library, to all of a sudden become that center of community. Because here, whether it's during a disaster or not, we have a lot of people that do not have, broadband access. We do have a lot of people that do not have their own libraries in their home. And so sharing resources is incredibly important. So collections is very important. The knowledgeable staff is critical. It's our number one resource that we have. Buildings and facilities. Listen, we don't own our buildings, the city does. And so there's only so much we can do, and that's sort of sometimes the frustrating part about it. But we can control, changing, because of a number of lights. We can change LED lighting. We can change to drought resistant. Not instead of beautiful green lawns, drought resistant landscaping. LED certification of new buildings. We can say, listen, we're willing to dedicate more funding to make sure that this is a more sustainable building moving forward. Things like boiler installation, we don't think about things like this, that old boilers would needed 175 degrees Fahrenheit, in order to heat a building, when you can do it now for, much less than that, let's say 149 degrees Fahrenheit. These are things that I've learned that, little things like that, when you're talking about 6 months out of the year where you have a boiler on at 66 locations, this starts to make a difference. Building monitoring systems, irrigation systems, even recycling. Of course, we recycle. That's, in many ways, that is the law, and, that's a good thing. But recycling books, we go through, we buy hundreds of thousands of books, and what do you do with the old books, right? You can only sell some of them, but we send all of them to an online vendor who is either going to resell them, which is reduce, reuse, recycle, or they will, destroy them in a much more comprehensive, smarter way than throwing books on the side to be put into landfill. So, this is only part of it. A lot of the stuff that we do is programming, whether it's, and that also means sustainability, about education, about programming to help people with promotes inclusive economic growth through our job and business growth. Inequality among countries, we're helping asylum seekers right now who are leaving one part of the country to come to another. They're not vilified here in Queens. They're our new neighbors, and so while we do have to invest in that. They're not going anywhere, and this is part of a great thing about being a city of immigrants is that we do value that. But the thing is that, again, we need to make this a sustainable city. And so investing in people and making sure they can maximize what they do is what libraries do all over the country.
Thank you, Nick. And that's quite the system. Like he said, it's a huge system and a smaller kind of area, geographical area, but impacting so many people coming from many different nations. Now, I have this next question is a little bit related. How is your organization supporting sustainability in the community? And also because we have academic librarians in the university campus. And I would love to hear about the initiative related to the solar panels, because I don't want us to go without hearing that. So we'll start with Leah.
And if it's okay, I'm actually going to turn that over to Dawn and Amir, because they were the co-PIs who were able to get the grant from EBSCO to get this wonderful project in place. And I'd really like for them to speak on it because it's their baby and I'm just along for the ride. I'm just fortunate enough that they're bringing it up to the Jupiter campus and the library is going to benefit. And so are our students in the community.
So we wrote a grant to EBSCO last year. We received the grant in 2022, and we tied it to the goals of the university for sustainability. So the university as a whole has expressed that they want to have each of our buildings at least 10% powered by solar energy in the coming years. They have this in their long range plan. So we attached our grant onto that concept, and we were fortunate to receive it. And in addition to getting, now the solar panels will only provide electricity for the library and an adjacent building, but we also built in an educational component to this grant. So in addition to the hardware that we're going to get, we're meeting a need that, as everybody is talking about bringing solar to all of the different places across the country and maybe some of the money through the government, strategies. Right now, there aren't enough electrical engineers that are trained in solar energy right out of the gate when they graduate to keep up with this. So our project is actually addressing that issue, and we're working with a cohort of students right now for the last 2 semesters that when they graduate in a few weeks, they'll be ready to go right out of the gate. And then we have another class that we're going to be working with in the summer and potentially in the fall. And a number that I heard early on, and that when we got this grant, was that in recent years, large solar installations in our area were maybe 30 projects a year that these engineering firms were working with, 30 a year. And now they're getting an average of 30 a month, and so the amount of labor that needs to be trained for these programs, we're going to be making a dent in that. And I want to, before I turn it over to Amir, he actually wrote the book on solar and solar powered the processes. He's an MIT graduate, and he is a pioneer in the field of solar energy. And we were just so fortunate that we brought him in, and he has been just such an important part of this project. So, Amir, do you have something you'd like to share too?
Well, first of all, thank you for that. Now I'm all red. Thank you for all those words, but. I have to say that I was on sabbatical in Portugal when I got a call from Dawn and Mahesh, who works with her. And usually when you're on sabbatical, you don't want to have a call come from the university. But this was such a pleasant, and it's been such an experience, I have to say. I love libraries, and of course, I've been doing solar since I was young. And when they called me, we actually thought that we might be too late to turn it in at that, but we were all so passionate and we worked so hard. Mostly Don and Leah and I did what I could, and we got the proposal in, and amazingly we got the grant right away. I mean, I thought, considering the history of how long it takes to get a grant, it was just amazing, and it all worked out. And right now we are in the process of ordering the equipment, and I also, like Kristen, that has gained so much from sabbaticals. In my many sabbaticals, I've learned what solar energy and renewables can do for people at large, you know. And I'm so passionate about this. And you can see Leah's excitement, and when she talks about her projects, it exudes optimism. And so I'm just so happy to be part of this. And Don is absolutely correct. We have a shortage right now in Florida of engineers and people that can work in this field. And we consider this workforce development as well. We actually are working along those lines. I get calls from all these firms asking if we have people that they can hire. And usually I have to say, well, no one that is ready to go into solar. But now, thanks to this grant and hopefully follow-up grants related to this, we will be able to say, yes, we do have people that you can hire. They're ready to go. We have a good number of our students hired by Florida Power and Light, which under Nextera, which is their parent company, is one of the biggest installers of solar and wind around the country. But amazingly enough, they don't have, they just started doing more in Florida. And so we do have a history of training engineers for utilities, but this will be more toward the sustainable part. And there is such an excitement about our students. You know, the groups that we are mentoring right now, they just can't wait to work in the solar field because, you know, you kind of get addicted. I mean, I have been for most of my life. Once you touch a solar panel and you see what it can do and all the benefits of it, the independence of it, the power that sorry for the pun, but the electricity, the excitement that it gives you. I learned in Bangladesh. I was doing my previous sabbatical was in Bangladesh in 2010. I was installing very small solar, one panel, one battery in these villages, and I saw what it can do. They have a history of microfinancing, and women were in charge of all of that because men were too disorganized and too not really on the ball when it came to getting you need accounting, you need to give the companies some money every month and so forth. And so whenever there was a solar powered village, you could see the empowerment, how women were kind of in charge of these installations and how you just see the change. And so I always say the solar panel is not just for electricity. It really does much more than that. So I'm really, thank you for calling me. And I'm glad that I got involved. And the two things that I'm passionate about, libraries, even though I'm not a librarian, and solar and renewable energies have come together for me to make this a very, very nice period of, work for me. So that's my 2 words.
Thank you so much. So we are seeing today there is a practice, from Queen's Library, the library itself, and then Christine talked to us about this amazing work being done in natural habitats by librarians, and then Leah talked about marine life, but also how libraries are helping to educate people that will maintain and keep up with our sustainability. And so libraries are touching every area on our planet, on land and underwater. And we are going to be talking to Nick as the last speaker for now, but I want everybody to think about at least one book title they will recommend in the area of sustainability. And we need to talk to Nick because the transformation and the rebuilding of the libraries was amazing. And I believe the libraries still are working in the Far Rockaway area. In other areas, perhaps I don't know all the libraries that were affected. And so it will be interesting for our colleagues in different parts of the world to know more, because it looks easy, right? But it's not magical. And there are some things that are perhaps useful for librarians to know about the process. And because Nick is an administrator, I also have another question that I just got, and it has to do with policies, how policies enable us to do these changes and these transformations. So Nick is amazing. I know he can combine things. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Lourdes. Policies, I'll even start with the second part. Policies on our buildings, that's very complicated in a big city too, because we don't have as much control when we don't own the building. And so I'm hearing about solar panels before. I was like, that sounds great. It's like, and yet for us to start putting solar panels on our roofs sounds like a very simple thing, doesn't it? And yet, if it was so simple, we would have them on all of our houses and all of our buildings. So clearly it's, it's not only regulation and funding, but it's maintenance and, So I'm going to start off, I usually don't start off negative and end negative, but I'm going to start off negative and end negative on this. So first of all, New York City, Hurricane 2012, not something that, you often think about. There are other places in the world that deal with this. And that's why they call it a superstorm when it comes through, such a northern part of the world in our area. So my negative thing was we reacted. And so that's never a good, you're always on the back foot when you have to react to something. That being said, we reacted very well. So the storm flooded, we have, if you look at Queens, you'll see that we actually have a lot of shoreline. It's beautiful, beautiful beaches in Queens. You wouldn't necessarily think of it. You'll see them when you fly in, but it's beautiful. But, when the ocean comes in, 4 feet of water, 6 to 6 feet of water comes into all of those nice libraries that are on that are on the peninsula, and it literally is a peninsula that's there. And so it did devastate those libraries. It knocked out power at the library that you saw at our Far Rockaway library, but they were still able to have service. But what we did immediately within days, and if you've ever seen it's a war zone, it's an environmental war zone is what it is. And it's really dangerous because you have electricity and everything. But within 3 days, we made sure to try to bring library service back. The mobile library is a great example of just seeing service, but it's really the people on the ground that are going door to door with, what do you need? A lot of people needed immediate assistance, and some of that was food. And so, we had, again, I'm going to go back to the center of community. People came to us and said, what can we do? We don't serve food. We're the library, right? But here, use our property to start distributing what you need. We're not FEMA, but we're going to connect you with FEMA. We don't have clothes. We're not a store, but come here to start distributing the clothes. We really were the center of community, distributing information, Wi-Fi, charging electrical outlets so that people could literally charge their phones. Like I said, distributing food, clothes, serving as a FEMA institution. FEMA doesn't have any offices anywhere in the country. What they do is when there's an emergency, they come in and they need to find a place to set up. That place was the library that you saw that initially had no emergency. They came in with the generator and were able to say, we're going to use this location. So we were happy to turn it over to be the FEMA center as well as the library. One of the things that I thought presented the most normalcy was doing programming for children right outside. We had no inside facility. When it rained, but when it didn't, we were able to do programming. One of my favorite pictures is having one of our librarians actually do picture book time right there on the sand that had come in a half a mile to do programming for children. Because this is it's a freak out. You know, you look around and you realize all this destruction. And when you can have someone just reading you a nice story and doing, you know, an adult doing their best to try to make it as normal as possible, it's much easier mentally to deal with this. This was, you know, it's a mental crisis as well as anything else. And so, you know, not only that, but doing, you know, trying to maintain, then the next step is finding spaces to be able to continue the services that are needed. You know, job and business, you know, I don't, you know, I need to continue to find, if I don't have a job, I need to still be able to do it. I need help with my resume. I need help filling out these forms that I wasn't going to be able to do if I had a computer at home. And now I have to do them without a computer. English is, you know, for others, speakers of other languages, outreach, you know, into people's, you know, we had a lot of not only single family homes, but there's a lot of public housing out there, getting into the public housing and getting that information. Rebuilding became a priority, and we were able to use FEMA funds to rebuild quickly. And in fact, one of our libraries, you know, is going to experience an expansion, and that expansion now has to be 4 feet above flood level 2, which is great. We're happy to participate in that. Moving forward, what we've learned is that we really are the center of the community, that when people need, we provide tons of resources ourselves, and then we mobilize city, state, federal, and not-for-profit and for-profit organizations to actually try to do what they need to do too. The challenge, and this is where I'm going to end on the negative notes that I said I would when I started, this might happen again. We haven't done anything to stop this. You know, we very well, I mean, it's a once in a century, you know, storm. Once a century storm seem to come about every 20 years now, at least, right? I mean, we used to talk about these, but the time frame seems to be a little bit different. And so I fear that this will happen again. We know what to do when it does, and we're trying to do our best with what we can do as a library. But it really takes a lot of effort on the federal part, the state part, the local part. The individual actions that we do add up. But when it does happen, we will react, and we really hope it doesn't, because you know, it really did provide, you know, a devastation. But we are prepared for when it does, and I think that is the best that we can do right now as a library system. Thanks, Loida.
Thank you, Nick. That is an amazing insight. It literally makes us feel, you know, that we were going through these different steps, like the library and the staff and everybody had to also kind of like get together in that. And that's you know, it tells about the beauty of the work of libraries, how they are really moving sustainability, moving development, and also supporting the communities. We all, I think the librarians here have seen how the students and also communities can really become alive when the library is in the community. And, you know, it's a lifeline. Like Nick was saying, there are people that need the computer to fill out forms, perhaps request food from the government, different things, and they might use the library. If the library is not there, what's going to happen, right? And so it's really impacting. The work that each one of you do is very inspiring. And I really want to take this piece of the program and the other piece and kind of make it separate and kind of push it out, because I want people to hear from each one of you. These are models. We didn't have much time, but I am very grateful for what you share, because I think it can inspire others, and they are models. And so I think there will be an influx of people submitting requests to go to the Galapagos and the Grand Canyon, and other people will get interested in researching solar panels and how else, you know, because it depends what the community needs. You were responding to this need of engineers in the area. So what else is needed in different communities served by academic libraries? And in Queens, I do know that librarians already go from different parts of the world to Queens to learn. So just hold on the doors, because there might be even more people. And so before we go, I would like you to share kind of quickly one title of a book on sustainable themes. for each one of us. Let's see. I'll just continue with Christine, Nick, and Leah, and perhaps the colleagues with her.
I have none. Unfortunately, I have none. If it would be something, it might be a book about tortoises in the Galapagos as a kid's book, so that they would know that, this unique species lives only here. And that would be something that should be sustained. That's all. I don't have a title.
That's beautiful, Christine. Thank you. Nick.
I'm going to recommend the same book that I've been recommending for about 30 years. It is a 1987 book by John Robbins. It is Diet for a New America. If you really want to help the environment, you will change your eating habits, and it really does affect, the world in more ways than you'll ever know. Thank you.
Right there with you, Nick. Thank you. And Leah?
We actually came up with 7 titles.
Okay.
We'll focus, and Don, you go ahead and speak up if you like as well. Yes. We'll focus on a few that pertain to libraries. We have listed here
we have 3 minutes, but yes, go ahead.
Sustainable thinking, ensuring your library's future in an uncertain world. Another one we have listed is Going Green, implementing sustainable strategies in libraries around the world. And there is one about creating the sustainable public library. Anything else you'd like to add from that list, Don?
So I wanted to mention that these books came recommended from a student at San Jose State University that we're working with our project here in Florida, Jen Dawes. And the final one I want to mention that she brought up was one of the ALA publications, A Field Guide to Climate Anxiety by Sarah Jaquette Ray. And that's what we have.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. I just don't want to go, but we have other things to do too. Thank you, everyone. Again, this has been amazing, really, really inspiring. Your experience, the models, those recommendations, suggestions, and practices, great to go on. And what a way of celebrating the Earth Day. Fantastic. I'm very happy about that. I want to encourage everyone that is here, that is listening to the recording, to follow the San Jose High School on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, because all these programs are pushed out through those channels. And you receive also information on wellness for library workers, sustainability. The school is very active. They had a program on deaf culture the other day. So you want to be part of all that information. Well, thank you again also to the staff at the high school that's been supporting the program. It's been amazing behind scenes in the weeks before and leading to this, and to Dr. Chow that has supported this vision from the beginning and is very enthusiastic about it too. That's very important. Well, thank you everybody, and enjoy the rest of the day.